These are two old guys who, as we know, are very much prone to gaffs and mistakes. Get the debates out of the way early. They can't then claim that they're running scared, but events and comments and other aspects of the election might well be remembered better than the debates come polling day in November.
Let's get on the plane.
Washington Whispers with Alistair Dawber on Times Radio.
Yeah, it's that time of the week where we cross the Atlantic and head to Washington for Washington Whispers with our man in Washington correspondent of the Times and the Sunday Times, Alistair Dawber. Are you in Washington?
Yes, Matt, I am.
Hey! Now, Alistair, I feel like I've been slightly led up a garden path here. I've been saying all morning that Joe Biden is not going to do the traditional presidential debates, which is true, but that doesn't mean he's not going to debate Donald Trump. So what's going on?
No, the debates are on. You're right. So traditionally, there are three debates very close to the election, usually within about 6 weeks, 2 months of the election, organised by a non-partisan group. Both Joe Biden and Donald Trump are saying that they're not going to do those debates, but instead have handed it over to the TV networks, CNN and NBC. CNN and ABC. And they'll host debates. They'll have debates next month on June the 27th, and then again in September. It seems that they've come to an agreement. Joe Biden put out a video clip yesterday inviting Donald Trump to bring it on.
I think we can hear it, actually, Alistair. Here is Joe Biden's video.
Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me in 2020. And since then, he hadn't shown up for debate. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal. I'll even do it twice. So let's pick the dates, Donald. I hear you're free on Wednesdays.
God. What is the significance then of them not doing the formal, independent ones, and instead going with the TV? Is it all about timing? The fact they're happening in June and September means they'll probably have almost no impact on what happens in November.
Exactly. The usual debates are for a very sort of formulaic path, one on domestic policy, one on foreign policy. They're very, very close to the election. Now, the official reason both campaigns have given is, well, look, that close to the election, many people have voted by post or by other means through early voting. So actually, we're talking to people who've already voted. The other factor, which I think is perhaps the more cynical view, but one that perhaps has more currency, is that these are two old guys who, as we know, are very much prone to gaffs and mistakes. Get the debates out of the way early. They can't then claim that they're running scared, but events and comments and other aspects of the election might well be remembered better than the debates come polling day in November.
Yeah, it's sort of weird when neither of them really want to do them, mainly because it's a rerun of last time, so we're going to basically get a rerun of this.
Vote now. Make sure you, in fact, let people know you're a senator. I'm not going to answer the question.
Why would you answer that
because
question?
The question is,
radical left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe? Who's on your list?
Right, gentlemen, I think
this
we've
is
ended
so
this.
unprecedented.
I don't know why the American public don't want more of that, Alistair.
Well, that's perhaps, and that was 4 years ago. That was when they were more
sharper.
sprightly and arguably more on it. Exactly. So while everyone gets very excited about these debates, if that's the sort of what we're looking forward to in a few weeks' time, then again in September, perhaps it certainly won't be easy to write about. I can give you that.
So the other question, of course, is who will be Donald Trump's running mate? Because we know that Kamala Harris is going to stand by Joe Biden. Let's pick our way through some of them. We've got various clips for them as well. Let's kick off with J.D. Vance, a Republican senator in Ohio, who used to be a never-Trumper, as I know. He's now a big supporter. So just to give you an example, this is what he thought of Donald Trump in 2017.
I didn't vote for Trump. Even for me, as problematic as I saw a lot of Trump's rhetoric and his ideas on how to fix some of these problems, I agreed with him that the problems were there.
And this is what he says now.
I think it's important to support President Trump as Republicans because I think he was a good president. And I think that he made the country more prosperous. And I think he made the world more peaceful.
Who is... I mean, it's interesting that, he knows the way his bread's buttered. Who is he? What's the significance of him? I mean, some people might know that he wrote a book which came out in 2016, the
Yeah.
Hillbilly Elegy, which I remember reading. I thought it was really interesting, lifting the lid on a
Yeah.
part of America that, it doesn't get talked about a lot.
He's a guy who's 39 years old. Like you said, he's an Ohio senator. He grew up in a working class family, went on to become a US Marine, went on to become a venture capitalist. He has a law degree from Yale, and is seen as one of the next big things in the Republican Party. Like you say, he was a never Trumper in 2016, apologized for Donald Trump to Christian voters and more generally to voters across the board. At one point tweeted, "My God, what an idiot," in response to something that Donald Trump had said. But now he's fully on board and appears at lots of different Trump events as a surrogate. He was in New York on Monday speaking to the media in support of Donald Trump outside the courthouse where Trump's on trial. He is, I think, one of the real favourites to be Donald Trump's running mate. And of course, the thing that Donald Trump wants is loyalty, and JD Vance has to prove his loyalty day in and day out because he was so against Trump to start with.
Let's turn to somebody who's been very enthusiastic about Trump, Vivek Ramaswamy, who obviously ran for the nomination, but here he is during his own bid to be the Republican candidate, talking about Donald Trump.
And I look forward to working with Donald Trump when I hope he's my advisor, frankly, my mentor in my first year in office. That much I will take, but that's how I think this is going to play out.
But he's been, we should explain, some of them have been turning up to the court in New York where Donald Trump is on trial. Is it part of the sort of cheerleaders entourage?
Exactly. So Donald Trump is going to be very careful what he says in the court case because he's under this gag order. He's not allowed to criticise the judge, the witnesses, so on and so forth. So what better way of getting around that than bringing all his mates up, who are all dressed in the same navy suit, white shirt, red tie, and go in front of the camera and do exactly the things that Donald Trump isn't allowed to do. Ramaswamy is an interesting character. He's got no previous political experience at all. He's a very wealthy biotech businessman, wanted to be president, and I think would very much like now to be Donald Trump's running mate and realise that Donald Trump's only got 4 years left in office and he can pick up the Republican nomination after that.
Okay, who else should we be keeping an eye on?
Well, there are a few names. Tim Scott, who's a South Carolina senator, or senator from South Carolina, he could be expected at the court today. He's a favourite. He also ran for the nomination last year. A woman called Elise Stefanik, who's a congresswoman from New York, and a chap, the governor of North Dakota, a guy called Doug Burgum, who again is an extremely wealthy businessman. Who ran his own sort of presidential campaign that no one thought was going to get anywhere, did rather better than people thought, and again turns up all over the country now in support of Trump and saying things like outside the courthouse that Donald Trump can't say.
In fact, here he is, Doug Burgum, being asked whether he'd consider being Donald Trump's running mate.
President Trump, the policies that he has, when he was in office, the world was safer and the United States was more prosperous.
Alistair, is this just one of the things that occupies chat before an election campaign gets underway? Does it really make that much difference who the running mate is in the end? Doesn't it come down to who would you rather have as president?
Yeah, I think so, and we'll have a vice presidential debate after the Republican convention when the person will be named. I think this time it does take on greater significance. First of all, both candidates can only serve for 4 more years, which puts the vice president in the box seat in terms of the nomination in 2028. And morbid though it is to say, they're both old men, and the phrase is that the vice president is only ever a heartbeat away from the Oval Office. Well, what's being said now, it's only a feeble heartbeat away from the Oval Office. So I think this time it does take on greater significance. Of course, Trump will pick his candidate, not necessarily on their ability to run the country one day, but perhaps more on how loyal they're going to be to the man in charge.
And then, I mean, is there any? I suppose it's possible that someone could help lose the race. Is there? I mean, I was just trying to think of recent.
Yeah. Well,
Sarah Palin, I suppose, is an example of someone who seemed slightly at odds with John McCain's brand.
That's right. I mean, John McCain picked Sarah Palin in 2008. She would have at that point been the first female vice president. She attracted a wing of the Republican Party voters that perhaps he couldn't tap, the what was then known as the Tea Party, which I think is now morphed into the Trump MAGA movement. And he thought that she would capture that and guarantee and nail down that segment of voters. As it turned out, Sarah Palin was a very weak candidate. She was asked about foreign policy and struggled to name sort of prime ministers of other countries and struggled on economics and, well, frankly, basically struggled on pretty much everything, and was really seen as a millstone around his campaign's neck. You're right; it doesn't make that much difference, but I think when they get it wrong, it takes on a greater significance, and it stands out as a bad decision, and therefore questions the judgment of the person running for the presidency.
Yeah, you just have to make sure it's someone who's not going to cause you any problems. Alistair, really good to speak to you. Alistair Dawber there, Washington correspondent of the Times, the Sunday Times, give us the rundown on the race for the White House.